Hey, go look at Lucy. She kind of messed up her, her cage. But if you saw my last couple shows, I switched to this paper towel substrate, and it's been working pretty good for this big old snake, this big 50-pound snake. And I've just been basically putting 3 layers right in here. So I'm going to move her up into a clean tub. Alright, I think she's going to be a lot happier up here. So, she is definitely a big girl. Yeah. Alright. Whew. Alright guys, so that was Lucy, my big albino dwarf reticulated python. But today I want to actually talk to you about ball pythons. A little bit smaller of a snake. They don't get quite that big. And today I thought I'd do a topic of a normal ball python. And I think it's a topic that not very many people cover. So when I talk about a normal ball python, if you're not used to the whole snake thing and you haven't been around the genetics and the breeding, I think you can get a little bit confused. So in ball pythons, there's actually some defects in some of the snakes, and a lot of it's connected to genes. Like, for example, for the spider gene, there's a little head wobble and stargazing, and you know, some of them, like the caramel albino, I don't know, some people say that there's a lot of kinks in caramel albinos. I've seen a lot of kinks in ultramels too. But I don't know, I've seen kinks pretty much all across the board where a snake can't completely straighten out. And I'm not 100% sure that it's linked to a gene. I think the caramel albino kind of gets a bad name for the kinks. There's a whole bunch of other ones. There's I'd say the super cinnamon, the super black pastel, the all black snakes. They say they tend to be really aggressive, and the super black pastel tends to have a duck bill. And there's a whole bunch of different, pretty much defects that are linked to certain genes. And when you think about the defects, you think, well, if they don't have a defect, then they're normal, right? Well, that's not exactly the type of normal that I'm talking about. So when I talk about a normal ball python, what I'm really talking about is a ball python that has the wild type pattern and color. And it's basically like straight out of the wild. If you went out in Africa and caught a wild ball python, that would be normal, a normal type ball python. And I have quite a few normals here. Let me show you what I have. Alright, so this is what I'm talking about when I talk about a normal ball python. So this is what they look like in the wild. So if you were to go out and catch a ball python, it would look pretty much exactly like this. And so they pretty much, they're pretty close, I would say, all the normals. You can definitely tell a normal from something else. Normals are very, very useful for breeders. If you're a breeder and you're not using normals, I would highly recommend getting a normal or two, or kind of looking around at some. So For me, normals are a cheap way to expand. If you're looking for a way to expand, and you're looking for a very inexpensive snake, I'd say a normal female this size would probably run anywhere, I don't know, probably the most you'd spend for something like this is probably $150, I'd say. You can pick them up cheaper. This one I actually got for free on Craigslist. And she was really small when I got her, and I grew her up. And a normal hatchling, I would say, if you go to the pet store around here, they usually sell for anywhere from, I'd say, $90 to $100. And then with tax, you're looking at probably $110. But at the shows around here, I've seen them go from, I don't know, anywhere from $20 to $40, I guess, depending on who's selling them and how many are available. Sometimes you go to the show and there's just, everyone has a lot of normals all over the place. And sometimes, it's basically supply and demand. And so another thing with the normal, so for example, if I crossed it with a codominant gene like a coral glow, let me show you what a coral glow looks like. I happen to have a male over here, and he's a little bit in shed. But coral glows used to go for a lot of money. They've come down a lot. You can get a coral glow for, I don't know, less than, I don't know. It's come down quite a bit. I'm not sure exactly what the price is in your area, but they're pretty reasonable. So if you crossed a coral glow with a normal, half the babies would come out as coral glows, which is kind of cool. And that's a really easy way to expand. And then if you had a female coral glow, which is hard because this one's a male maker, and that's a whole nother topic in genetics, then you could basically upgrade your normal and have a bunch of coral glows or whatever. Another good thing with normals is that if you have a snake with multiple genes, say for example with this female, if you had a male with like 5 or 6 genes and you weren't sure exactly what genes were in it, you could cross it with this and tease out all the genes from that male. And then you could figure out, if it had leopard and pinstripe and pastel and all the different genes. Versus if you mixed it with, another female that had multiple genes, you'd kind of be guessing in some cases. So it's kind of good to prove out different snakes. That's kind of what I use a lot of my females for, to prove them out and to expand my collection. Another good thing you can do with normals is based on the type of normal. There's a lot of normals that are darker and some that are lighter. And I'd say this is probably kind of a mid-range, not a real dark, not a real light. But if you're working with some really dark genes and you wanted to really enhance them, like a GHI, and you wanted I've seen GHI combos that where people really want the colors to pop on the black background. You get a really dark normal, breed the GHI to the dark normal, and everything will come out a lot darker than if you had like a lighter normal. And you can do kind of the opposite with a light normal too. So let me show you, actually, I do have another normal that's quite a bit lighter. Let me show you that one. If that one will stay in the tub. Oh, she's hissing. She's not in a good mood. So take a look at this normal. I think you can definitely tell that there is a difference. They're both females, both normals, but you can definitely tell that this one's, I almost thought this had something in it. But, all the babies came out, the normals looked normal, and I didn't really see anything come out of this that was really unexpected. And it's just a lighter colored normal. So, and a lot of times they'll fool you too. So back, when all the morphs were really, really expensive, and everyone was looking for something new, and they were paying top dollar for, anything that was slightly different. A snake like this, it could fool you because you could buy into it thinking you're buying into a project, and it's basically just a normal. So here's another normal female, and this one has more of a normal pattern. The last one didn't have quite that normal of a pattern. It almost looked like there was something going on, but I just think it's a different pattern mutation in a normal. But this one, you could definitely tell it's definitely a lot lighter of a normal. So for example, if you were going like for the ghost gene, or if you wanted something really light on a background that's really light, I would breed it with the light one. And really, I would say the normal is kind of like your base template for all your other genes. So you think of it as you're painting on a canvas, and what do you want your canvas to look like? Do you want it to look a lighter canvas or a darker canvas? I guess that's how I would think of it when you're breeding ball pythons. Okay, so here's one of my male normal hatchlings. And this one ate a little over 6 rodents, I'd say, since it's hatched. So he's doing really good. I'm going to sell him at the show here in a couple weeks. But you notice how much brighter. They just really pop when they're small. And I think it's kind of hard to tell a light normal from a dark normal, especially when they're this small. So this one actually... This one's really interesting because it's not het pied for my breeding, although it almost looks like it might have. Usually when it has these little tracks down the belly, sometimes that's an indicator of being het pied. But from my pairing, it doesn't look het pied, but it really has some really nice color. And if you're looking for a really nice pet snake, the cheapest you can find, this is it right here. So, and I think they eat the best and they grow the fastest, and they don't have any genetic problems at all. So, and basically, if you go into a lot of pet stores, you're looking for a ball python, especially in the small mom and pop shops. This is what they'll have. So, yeah. Here's another one of my male normal hatchlings. So, this guy's going into shed, so you can tell it's not quite as bright, but it's just because he's going into shed. And the eyes are getting a little dull and they kind of fade out a little bit. And this one's got a pretty normal belly pattern for normal. Here's one of my female normal ball python hatchlings, and just look at the difference in the color on that one. I can't even believe how big this one is. This thing has grown like a rocket. But it is so much brighter than the other ones. I can't even believe it, that it's just a normal. And this one's a female too. This would actually make a really nice breeder. I really like the highlights on the sides. That's a good looking snake. So here's one of my female normal hatchlings. And look at how much darker this one is compared to that other one. It's quite a bit darker. And it's interesting, the normals, they have these little, they call them alien heads on the sides. And some of them have more alien heads than others. Oh! That one tried to bite me. Didn't break the skin though. Alright. These little hatchlings. It seems like every time I get bit, it's from a hatchling. Here's another male normal hatchling. I didn't realize I had so many normals. So these will all be at the show. So if you're looking for a pet snake or a really inexpensive breeder, you could pick one of these guys up. Even the males would be a good breeder if you're trying to prove out a female that has a lot of genes. And you want a male that can tease out all the genes without interfering. But this is a good looking snake. And you'll notice on the bellies, actually, take a look at the belly of a normal. So this one's starting to run a little bit, but you see it kind of has that normal kind of broken up pattern. And I actually have one that's het pied, and I'll show you what that looks like. So this is a female normal, 100% het pied. And the het pied, you can well, it's 50% het pied, but you can tell by the belly tracks that it is 100% het pied. So if you see the tracks like that down the belly, that shows you that it's het pied, which is a recessive gene. And normally in recessive genes, you can't see a single copy of the gene, but in some cases you can. Especially with normals with the het pied, it's pretty obvious. Here's another male normal, a really tiny one, and this one's only eaten one meal since it hatched out. So this is basically almost what they look like right out of the egg. So some of these guys will fool you. So basically that was all the normals I have. And this is actually kind of a step up from a normal. So this is actually a normal, but it's 50% het for caramel albino. And for caramel albino, you don't really get tracks on the belly. And there's really no way that you know for sure that it's het for caramel albino until you breed them out. So you breed this, you can breed this to like a caramel albino, and if half the babies come out caramel albino, then you know it's 100% het. But right now, according to the breeding, it's like a 50-50 chance that this is either het caramel albino or it isn't het caramel albino. Okay, so that was my little episode on the normal ball python, and actually I had more normal hatchlings than I thought I did, so, and those will all definitely be at the show. And believe it or not, there's a lot of people that wholesale all their normals, and they just kind of ship them out real cheap, and there's a lot of pet stores that'll take them too, and they pay pretty much pennies on the dollar. I think pretty much show prices is what they'll pay, and then they'll mark them up and sell them. But I think normals are really useful to have in your collection, especially if you're kind of starting out, if you're expanding. And I even know some long-time breeders that as they expand, they actually keep all their normals. And they're actually, if you had like a 5 or 6 gene male and you bred it to your normals, you could pop out a whole rainbow of colors. And I think that's the really good way. If you're thinking of getting into breeding ball pythons, and you're looking for a really inexpensive way to do it, what I would do personally, and this is kind of what I'm doing a little bit on the side, is you pick up like 4 or 5 normals, and then pick up one really high-end male. I think a really good way to do it would be to pick up a male that has like 5 or 6 genes. I haven't actually gone that route. I've chosen more of a single gene. That's more of a higher end, but I think another good route would be to go with a male with multiple genes, because then if you're selling snakes and you put them out at the show, then you have a whole rainbow of different colors. And actually this year I'm thinking I might pick up a male that has at least 5 or 6 genes and breed it to some of these females and see what I pop out. And oh, one more thing, I've also seen people with normals, what they'll do is they'll throw in one male, and then the next week they'll throw in a different male, and the next week they'll throw in a different male throughout the breeding season. And then when the eggs hatch, you never really know what's going to pop out. And sometimes they'll get a whole Easter egg basket of all these different snake eggs from all the different males. And I thought that was pretty cool. You probably wouldn't want to do it with recessive genes, because you don't know for sure. It'd be too much of a gamble for recessive, but I think for codominant and dominant genes, it would be kind of fun to do that every year. Just kind of have an Easter egg snake. So thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something. And I thought it was kind of interesting with the normals. I think they're pretty much underrated, and not a lot of people work with the normals. So I will see you next time.